everyone. This is Randy Nunez, your host at Between the Chalk Lines. We're doing the weekly wrap up for the second week of baseball. And to start off, we're going to go back to the Shohei Ohtani slash Ibe Mutahara scandal. It is being reported that Ibe actually reported to federal authorities today on Friday the 12th. He is looking like he'll be getting a court date soon, within probably the next 24 hours, and will likely be the fall guy for what is being called the biggest scandal of baseball in decades. Besides, Wander Franco, and some other small things that have happened. Um, 18, 16, 20 plus million. We don't know what it is. No matter what it is, even if it's just 4.5 million, that's a lot of money that went missing. And the eBay apparently, supposedly, gambled away and lost and or won to this bookie that was in California here. And, the authorities are showing texts between him and the bookie. Um, Apparently he did say he technically did steal from Otani. So technically, what does that mean? We don't know, but we'll find out, I'm sure. But on to baseball. After releasing pitcher Matt Gage to make room for Taylor Trammell, outfielder from the Seattle Mariners, Dodgers actually re-signed him to a minor league deal. So Matt Gage is back with Dodgers in the minors. Trevor Story, I told you guys all about him coming back and being in the lineup last week, and unfortunately, he hurt himself on a diving play. I put this up on TikTok, so if you're following me on TikTok, you saw this already. If not, follow me. It's just Between the Chalk Lines. It's simple, easy to remember. Look that up on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, on Twitter or X, if you want to call it that. It is just BTC Lines on the search and people, and you'll find us there. So, yeah, I'm sorry, guys, Boston fans, Trevor Story fans. It looks like he's just going to be on the injured list again because he does have to go through season-ending surgery. So he's not going to play again in 2024. Maybe he will be the AL comeback player of the year for 2025. Let's hope. Spencer Strider underwent an MRI on his right elbow, showing that his UCL has damage on it. So the Braves did ultimately place him on the injured list with the UCL sprain. We don't know yet if it's going to be a tear or he'll have surgery. There's a rash of things going on with pitchers and surgeries. We'll talk about that in a second here. Yankees relief pitcher Jonathan Lucia also reportedly is going to have Tommy John surgery due to damaged UCL. Again, UCL is having problems with a lot of these pitchers in his shoulder. So that will end his 2024 season. And after having to replace Eloy Jimenez on the injured list, the White Sox will be, or they already did, place star center fielder Luis Robert Jr. on the injured list with it was a hip flexor strain that he had. That can cause him to miss almost up to 2 months. So, White Sox fans, I'm sorry again. You're missing out on a lot of big names, big guys that could have potentially helped you out, not be last place. But moving on, the Guardians, Cleveland, Shane Bieber, their ace, is going to have Tommy John surgery, ending his season. Uh, I actually have a card of his that I was going to give away, but his first two starts of the season, he was complaining of elbow pain. So they went the safer route and took some imaging, MRI, obviously, and found that his UCL, you guessed it, had damage to it. So, rest of the season, see you in 2025. Shane Bieber, hopefully you can bounce back. Um, and oddly enough, this was already reported a few weeks ago that Steven Strasburg of the Nationals was going to retire, but a few more wrinkles in this report. Um, they do still have to pay him the remaining $105 million that he had on a 7-year contract. But he has reportedly agreed to defer those payments. So I don't know the exact numbers and when he'll be getting paid. If those defers will be, paid with interest down the line. He could do Bobby Bonilla and say, yeah, you can pay me in 20 years, but I want 10, 20% interest on that payment. But we'll see. Um, More injuries. The Diamondbacks shortstop Geraldo Perdomo, super under the radar All Star last year, had a great season in 2023. He'll be going on the injury list because he has a torn meniscus, and that requires surgery, more surgery, and he'll be out for at least 1 month. Uh, Reds pitcher TJ Anton threw one pitch in the seventh inning 2 days ago, as of today, so the 10th, I believe, 9th, and was pulled out due to injury. One pitch as a reliever. He has unfortunately suffered from pitching injuries before, so this is no different. They'll be evaluating him further to see what it is, whether it's shoulder, elbow, UCL, whatever it may be. Because the first evaluation showed that he has a tear in his elbow. Surgery is still up in the air, but it looks like he will go into elbow surgery due to partial ligament tear. And on the 8th, so 4 days ago, out of recording, the LBPA, or the PA Norn shortly, Players Association, put out a note on behalf of all players for Major League Baseball saying that Major League Baseball is being uh, dangerous with this pitch clock change and that they don't like it. I've seen, opinions of both cases, whether it's the pitch clock rushing pitchers and they're causing injuries, or whether it's the advent of the whole I want you available every single day, or I want you to just throw 100 miles an hour, putting a lot of pressure on the elbow, or slight slider or spike, change up, curve, whatever you want to call it. That's also putting pressure on tendons and causing injuries to pitchers. So on the 8th, we put out an open letter, basically trashing them, blaming Major League Baseball for all these injuries. Shane Bieber, um, you know, Clayton Kershaw, all these guys, Jonathan Losiga, and I just said TJ Anton. So these are all just in the first 2 weeks of baseball, except for Kershaw. He's always hurt. Um, but the Reds pitcher Bieber and Yankees pitcher all getting hurt just in the first 2 weeks is insane to me. And I don't want to put out any certain opinion myself. I just want to say that I've heard both sides, and I'm not sure where I sit on this. I'm not sure on where I sit and think of this whole thing. I do think that the pitch clock could possibly be a problem, but I do know that from what I've heard from other pitchers in Major League Baseball and formerly of Major League Baseball, the body is not meant to throw 100 plus miles an hour. Unless you're just built different, you're just not physically meant to throw 100 plus miles an hour. You know, all these guys, Pedro Martinez, guys like that, in the late 90s, early 2000s, Hall of Famers, um, didn't throw 100 miles an hour. And they were great pitchers. There are exceptions like Nolan Ryan, the unit himself, also, and Johnson. Johnson threw 100 miles an hour, but we're not seeing these guys throw 100 miles an hour every week, 3, 4 times a week out of the bullpen. So it's a little bit different when you're a starting pitcher. Um, After the Angels home opener last week, it was announced by the team and other outlets that the team had indeed hired former Angel outfielder and tutor to Mike Trout as assistant GM, the favorite Torrey Hunter. Everyone loves that guy in Minnesota, Anaheim, everywhere else he played. He's a favorite of the fans, so I think it's a smart move. And I think that Torrey Hunter could possibly help. I know there's a few other assistant GMs to Perry Minijon in Anaheim, but this is something that Torrey has already done in Minnesota for a couple of years. So it's not like he is just getting hired because he's a favorite, of fans. It's because he actually knows what he's doing. And like several other pitchers in the league, Astros starter Framber Valdez was scratched from his last start due to elbow soreness and subsequently put onto the 15-day injured list, retroactive to the 6th. Both the team and Valdez want him to avoid Tommy John surgery. I think everyone wants him to avoid Tommy John surgery, uh, as he's been a very productive arm quietly in the rotation. He's also looking at the possibility of free agency after next year. So he can't miss this year or next year and go into free agency, after Tommy John. If he does do it, he has to do it this year and then pitch out of his mind in 2025 and then go into free agency as a top pitching arm. The Angels, speaking of pitchers, placed Chase Silseth and Gio Zuniga on a 15-day IL and selected Carson Fulmer and Hunter Strickland and DFA'd Levon Soto and Zach Pluzak to make room for those two pitchers who are going to pitch out of the bullpen. We also had Jose Soriano make his first career start earlier this week. They lost to the Tampa Bay Rays. He took the loss, I believe, and tough luck. It wasn't his fault, I think, from what I saw. It was lack of offense, to say the least. And it is also being reported that the Marlins are agreed in the offseason to avoid manager Skip Schumacher's 2025 club option. So that club auction for next year is already voided. It seems that Skip was unhappy with Kim Ing's leaving of the franchise and the way that happened. So, because Kim was the GM who hired him, so they had a good, relationship, obviously friendly, outside of the game and inside the front office. And never heard a peep of any problems between the front office and Skip Schumacher. So it will be interesting to see where he goes next year, if he does at all. Um, and then going back to other scandals and back to law, L.A. Julio Urias of the Dodgers, or formerly, I should say, of the Dodgers, is on leave now because he is being charged with 5 misdemeanors due to the MLB's joint domestic violence policy. This corporal injury on a spouse was what the misdemeanors are being called. Um, Basically beating his wife outside of a soccer match uh, in, in 2023. And that investigation was just wrapped up by the police. So 5 misdemeanors, put on administrative leave, and he could possibly not get paid for the time he did actually play for Dodgers. In part, not all of it, but in part. MLB only commented that their investigation is still ongoing. So, Major League Baseball has their hands pretty full with Uris and Otani, all of that going on. Nationals announced that pitcher Josiah Gray has been placed on the 15-day IL. Guess what it is? Yeah, you got it. It is elbow/forearm flexor pain. It is being called strain right now. Retroactive to the 6th, so a week ago, when you were hearing this or watching this. Do not believe it is ligament damage or that there's any injury to the ligament yet. They'll probably go reevaluate that in a week or two. And finally, the cream of the crop is here. Major League Baseball's #1 overall prospect going into 2024, infielder Jackson Holliday, was called up to the majors on 9th after a hot start in AAA, and he made his debut on April 10th. His dad, his brother, Ethan Holliday, who I might say will be a first-round pick in a few years. Watch out for Ethan Holliday. And his sister and grandfather were all there to watch him make the debut, or his debut, in Major League Baseball. And if you are a card collector, you know that he wore that MLB debut patch first day, so he will have a card sooner or later in 2024 that has that patch from the very first game, April 10th, 2024, and will be signed by Jackson Holliday himself in a Topps product. Although he did go over 4 with 2 strikeouts and had a fielding bumble, he did drive in an RBI, so he has 1 RBI as of the 10th on a fielder's choice. The Orioles did go on to beat the Red Sox that day, 7-5, coming back from behind in his first game. So there's that too. On top of the fact that he is wearing number 7, the first Oriole to wear that number since the Iron Man himself basically retired it, and nobody else wanted to wear it but Jackson Holliday. Is going to wear Cal Ripken Jr.'s old number 7. So I'm actually surprised myself when I heard that it hadn't been retired for Cal Ripken Jr. He's a Hall of Famer, and he's has the Iron Man record for most games consecutively played and started, I should say. Um, I don't know how Baltimore never retired number 7 for that, and for him. But we'll see. It's kind of like the Angels not retiring number 27 for Vladimir Guerrero or Mike Trout. Like speaking of Mike Trout, he's actually going to be going on parental leave in a few months, a month or two, because they have a second baby boy coming on the way. Bats, uh, little one now is going to be a big brother. So there's that. And in other news from AL East teams, besides Mike Trout rant, Red Sox have extended a young center fielder Ceddanne Rafaela to an 8-year deal worth $50 million that is heavily back-ended just after they extended the starting pitcher Brian Bella during spring training. So they are trying to go the Braves route and lock up their young talent early, not necessarily, proven, but they will prove themselves on the line. So we'll see. And lastly, but not least, Jordan Montgomery has chosen to leave Scott Boras and go to Wasserman, which is based out of Los Angeles. So the whole Scott Boras misreading the market this year, I think, has hurt him, his reputation, maybe just a little bit, not necessarily in a giant way, but I think just misreading that market and getting his clients not the best deals that or the deals that they wanted necessarily. Um, Kind of hurt the Scott Boras is the best agent in the world. He will get you the best deal, the most money, the most years, kind of reputation that he had before. But we'll see. Montgomery, he'll joining Wasserman, as I said, and that is it as far as news goes for Major League Baseball. Going into the standings, going into today, April 12th, Friday. So you're watching or listening to this, depending on if you're on YouTube or Amazon Music or Spotify or Google Podcasts or Apple Podcasts. I'll drop all the links in all the places so you can find that, whether you want to watch it or listen to it. And I'll be posting it on the BTC lines on X/Twitter, and I'll be posting it on TikTok at Between the Chalk Lines. Standings and teams going into April 12th, as I was saying, the New York Yankees are still the top American League team, and the Pirates of all teams are the best NL overall team as far as winning percentage. I will say that. I'll make that clear. This is based on winning percentage. So, yes, the Dodgers may have more wins, but they also have more losses than Pirates. Yankees have the most wins of all teams in the American League. So, there you go. By division, the Yankees, obviously, lead American League East. Guardians, surprisingly almost, lead the American League Central. And the Rangers, not so surprisingly, lead the American League West. But what is surprising in the West is as of going into the 12th, the Houston Astros were the last place in the West. I'll just leave that for you to, uh, you know, process. I know it's kind of crazy. You never hear Houston in last place. or at least not before they moved to the American League West. Over in the National League, the Braves lead the East. The Pirates, obviously, on top in the Central, and the Dodgers first in the West. When you have 10 wins, you're usually, out of 20 something, you usually are in the first place. So the closest ones were the Rangers, Angels, Angels playing 500 ball like they usually do in the last 10 years. That's just the team that they put out is a 500 ball team. I don't expect for them to be 500 ball for long. And I don't expect the A's to be third place for long. The Yankees were my choice for the American League champions. I expect them to go far in the playoffs. Their team is different, just built different this year. They have young guys actually, playing the field. They're not relying on big dollar, big name free agents. They lost Garrett Cole, but he's gonna make it back before the All Star game, and he'll make that run, that push, and help the rotation. And they didn't break. I'm surprised that the Yankees didn't break, and they didn't pay someone to kind of fill in that spot for a long time. Um, so good on them, and it looks like Anthony Volpe has figured it out at the plate, guys. Volpe is going to be a force to be reckoned with. And over in the National League, Braves are just doing Braves things. Dodgers are just doing Dodger things. Winning. What can I say? Uh, Besides that, I do have a possible special guest in the last week of the month. We might do something a little bit different than your normal weekly wrap up. And to wrap up today's episode, don't forget that the Guardians on top, G-Ram 2023 tops finest chrome purple out of 250, 250. Guess the number out of 250 and you might win this card. Again, J-Ram, get it, drop it in the comments, and helps most is a like, a share, a comment, subscribe, follow, anything of the above. I will greatly appreciate it, and thank you very much. This is Randy Nunez, your host on Between the Chalk Lines. Another weekly wrap up done, and I'll see you next time.